Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his face as he looked at the screens in front of him. The numbers were all bad. Very bad. The power was down to 30%. The shields were failing. And the enemy was getting closer every minute. How much time do we have? Jake asked. He was the boss of New Kepler Colony, but right now he felt helpless. Outside, purple beams of light cut through the buildings like hot knives through butter. The Vorthik were coming. Lisa Harper looked up from her. Control panel. Her hands were shaking as she tried to fix the shield system. Maybe 2 hours, she said. The main generator is almost dead. I can't fix it fast enough. Jake nodded. He had expected this answer. For 3 months, the Vorthik Empire had been attacking human colonies across this part of space. They were like a disease that spread from world to world. They killed everyone they found or made them slaves. No one could stop them. The colony had sent out help signals every day. They begged the Galactic Federation to send ships. They asked other human worlds to come save them, but no one came. Everyone was too scared of the Vorthik. The Federation had already given up on this whole area of space. Not another explosion shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling. Jake could hear people screaming outside. These were his people. Families with children. Old people who had worked hard their whole lives to build this place. Good people who deserved better than this. Sir, the south wall is gone, came a voice over the radio. It was Captain Ben Thompson, the head of colony security. They broke through. We're falling back to the main square. Jake picked up his radio. How many men do you have left? 12, Ben said. There was the sound of gunfire behind his voice. Maybe 11 now. These things are tough, sir. Our weapons barely hurt them. Jake closed his eyes. When they first came to New Kepler, they had 50 security guards. Now, only 12 were left alive. The Vorthik soldiers were 8 feet tall and covered in armor. They looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. Their weapons could punch holes through concrete walls. Dr. Paul Carter ran into the command room. His white coat was covered in blood. Jake, we need to move the wounded to the deep bunkers. The hospital is gone. How many hurt? Jake asked. Too many, Paul said. Maria is helping me move them, but we don't have enough medicine. We don't have enough of anything. Maria Rodriguez appeared behind Paul. She was carrying a small girl who was crying for her mother. The children are scared, Maria said. They keep asking when help is coming. Jake looked at the little girl. She had blonde hair and blue eyes. She reminded him of his own daughter back on Earth. But his daughter was safe. This little girl was not. What do I tell them? Maria asked. Jake did not know what to say. He could not lie to them. But he could not tell them the truth either. The truth was that no help was coming. They were alone. More explosions came from outside. The lights went out for a moment, then came back on. Lisa was working faster now, but Jake could see it was no use. The power systems were too damaged. Sir, Ben's voice came over the radio again. They're pushing hard now. I think this is their final attack. We can't hold much longer. Jake looked at the map on his screen. Red dots showed where the Vorthik were. Blue dots showed where his people were. There were so many more red dots than blue ones. Ben, fall back to the bunkers, Jake said. Get everyone underground. What about the surface? Ben asked. We'll lose it, Jake said. But maybe we can keep some people alive until ... He stopped talking. Until what? Until someone came. To save them? No one was coming. The building shook again. This time, part of the roof fell down. A big piece of metal crashed where Jake had been standing just a moment before. Everyone to the bunkers. Jake shouted, Now! They ran through the hallways. Outside, They could see the purple light getting brighter. The Vorthik were almost at the main building now. Their ships flew overhead like huge black birds docked in the bunkers. Families held each other tight. Children cried. Old people prayed. Young men and women who had never held a gun before picked up weapons. They did not know how to use. Jake found Ben Thompson at the bunker entrance. Ben's armor was cracked and burned. His face was cut, and his left arm hung at a wrong angle. "How bad is it?" Jake asked. "Bad," Ben said. "We killed some of them, but not enough. They just keep coming. And their weapons? Jake, I've never seen anything like it. They can shoot through our best armor like it's paper. How long can we hold here?" Ben looked around at the scared faces in the bunker. "Maybe an hour. These bunkers were built for storms, not for war. When they bring their big guns down here, ... He did not need to finish. Everyone knew what would happen. Jake walked to the communication center in the bunker. The radio was still working. He had been sending out calls for help every day for months. No one ever answered. But maybe, just maybe, someone was listening. He turned on the radio and spoke into it. "This is New Kepler Colony, calling anyone who can hear this. We are under attack by the Vorthik Empire. We have maybe 1 hour left. If anyone is out there, please remember us. Remember that humans lived here. Remember that we fought." He was about to turn off the radio when he heard a voice. It was very quiet and far away, but it was there. "New Kepler Colony, this is... Can you hear us?" Jake's heart jumped. Yes, we can hear you. Who is this? Can you help us?" The voice was breaking up. "This is ... Earth Defense. We are ... coming." Then the radio went quiet. Jake stared at the radio. Had he really heard that? Or was he so scared that he was hearing things that were not there? Lisa came over to him. "Did someone answer?" "I think so," Jake said. "But the signal was too weak. I couldn't understand most of it." "Earth Defense?" Lisa said. "But Earth is so far away. It would take months for ships to get here from Earth." Jake nodded. Earth was their home world, but it was hundreds of light years away. Even if Earth had sent ships the day the attack started, they could not be here yet. Outside the bunker, they could hear the Vorthik getting closer. Their voices sounded like animals growling. Soon they would find the bunker entrance. Soon it would all be over. Jake looked around at his people. They were good people who had come to this world to build something new. They had farms and schools and hospitals. They had made a life here. Now it was all going to end. But maybe, just maybe, someone had heard their call for help. Maybe somewhere in the dark of space, ships were coming. Maybe they would not die forgotten after all. The sounds outside got louder. The Vorthik had found them. The night sky above New Kepler suddenly filled with fire. Bright streaks of light cut through the darkness like falling stars. But these were not stars. They were moving too fast and burning too bright. Jake Morrison looked up through the small window in the bunker. At first, he thought the Vorthik were dropping bombs on them. But something was different. The energy readings on his scanner were not like Vorthik weapons. "What is that?" Lisa Harper asked. She was standing next to Jake, looking at the same display. "I don't know," Jake said, "but it's not Vorthik." Above them, Lieutenant Commander Alex Stone checked his instruments one more time. The drop pod was shaking hard as it fell through the atmosphere. The heat shield was glowing white hot, and the temperature inside was getting very warm. 30 seconds to impact, came the voice in his helmet. It was the ship's computer, counting down the time until he hit the ground. Alex looked at the display that showed him where the other pods were. 200 of Earth's best soldiers were falling toward New Kepler right now. They had traveled farther than any human army had ever traveled before. They had come to save people they had never met. 10 seconds, the computer said. Alex held tight to his seat. The pod hit the ground like a giant hammer. The impact threw him forward hard, but his armor kept him safe. Steam rose from the hot metal around him as the pod systems cooled down. The door opened with a loud hiss. Alex stepped out into the night air of New Kepler. Around him, other pods were opening too. Soldiers in powered armor emerged from each one, their weapons ready. "Echo Squad, report," Alex said into his radio. "Echo 2, ready," came the first. Reply, "Echo 3, ready. Echo 4, ready." One by one, all his squad leaders checked in. Everyone had made it down alive. Now the real work would begin. Alex's helmet display showed him the area around him. Red marks showed where the enemy was. Blue marks showed where the colonists were hiding. There were a lot more red marks than blue ones. "All squads, move out," Alex commanded. "Remember, protect the civilians first. Kill the enemy second." Sergeant Kelly Barnes led her squad away from their landing site. They had landed right in the middle of the Vorthic forces. The aliens had been moving toward the bunkers where the colonists were hiding. Now they found themselves surrounded. A group of Vorthic soldiers came around the corner of a burned building. They were tall and covered in thick armor. Their weapons were bigger than anything the colonists had. But when they saw Kelly's squad, they stopped walking. These were not the scared colonists they expected to find. These were soldiers in armor that looked like it came from a science fiction movie. Blue energy fields glowed around them. Their weapons were pointed right at the Vorthic. "Fire," Kelly said quietly into her radio. The plasma rifles lit up the night. Beams of pure energy hit the Vorthic soldiers. Their armor, which had stopped every colonial weapon, melted like ice in a fire. The aliens fell to the ground, dead before they knew what had happened. "Move up," Kelly ordered. "Check for more." Her squad moved forward like they had trained for. This exact situation. Each soldier knew exactly where to go and what to do. They had practiced this kind of fight hundreds of times back on Earth. More Vorthic appeared from the buildings ahead. These ones were ready for a fight. They raised their weapons and started shooting. Purple beams of energy flew through the air. But the human soldiers did not even slow down. The Vorthic weapons hit their energy shields and bounced off like raindrops. The humans kept walking forward, shooting as they went. Within minutes, all the Vorthic in that area were dead. In the bunker, Jake Morrison heard the gunfire getting closer. But something was different about it now. The sounds were different. The weapons firing were not Vorthic weapons. "Ben," Jake called to Captain Thompson. "Do you hear that?" Ben listened carefully. "Those are energy weapons, but not Vorthic ones. The sound is different. Could it be Federation forces?" Lisa asked. Ben shook his head. "Federation weapons don't sound like that either. I've never heard weapons like these before." Above them, the battle was spreading across the colony. Major Dan Phillips had set up his command post on a hill that gave him a good view of the whole area. His computer showed him where every human soldier was, and where the enemy was. "Bravo Squad, there are civilians trapped in Building 7, Dan said into his radio. "Go get them out." "Copy that, sir," came the reply. Dan watched his display as Bravo Squad moved toward the building. The Vorthic had surrounded it, probably planning to kill everyone inside. But they did not know that death was coming for them instead. Corporal Amy Lewis was on top of a tall building with a long-range rifle. She could see Vorthic soldiers moving between the buildings below. Every time one of them showed themselves, she put a plasma bolt through their head. "This is Overwatch," Amy said into her radio. "I count 40 enemy soldiers moving toward the main bunker. They'll be there in 5 minutes." "Copy, Overwatch," Dan replied. Charlie Squad, intercept those soldiers before they reach the bunker. On our way, came the answer. The Vorthik had been winning this battle for months. They were used to easy victories against scared colonists with old weapons. But now they were fighting an enemy unlike anything they had ever seen. Staff Sergeant Nick Brown watched a group of Vorthik vehicles moving down the main street. They were big, armored trucks with guns on top. The aliens thought they were safe. Inside their metal boxes, Nick pulled out a small device and pressed a button. The charges he had planted earlier exploded all at once. The Vorthik vehicles turned into balls of fire and twisted metal. Transport column destroyed, Nick reported. Good work, Dan said. Now get to the spaceport. Don't let any of their ships escape. The battle was turning. The Vorthik had come to New Kepler, expecting to kill helpless farmers and miners. Instead, they found themselves fighting trained killers with weapons that could cut through their best. Armored out in the main bunker, Jake Morrison was listening to his radio. The colony's emergency frequency was full of voices he did not recognize. They were coordinating attacks, calling for support, reporting enemy positions. But these were not Vorthik voices. Jake, Lisa said, I'm picking up human voices on the military frequency. Jake switched his radio to that channel. Immediately, he heard clear English being spoken by people with Earth accents. This is Echo Leader to all squads. The bunker area is secure. Begin civilian evacuation procedures. Jake grabbed his radio. This is Colony Administrator Jake Morrison. Who is this? How did you get here? There was a moment of silence. Then a voice answered. Mr. Morrison, this is Lieutenant Commander Alex Stone of the Terran Defense Force. We're here to get you out of this mess. Terran Defense Force? Jake said. But Earth is hundreds of light years away. Yes, sir, it is, Alex replied. But we got your message, and we don't leave our people behind. Jake felt tears in his eyes. Somehow, impossibly, help had come. Warriors from Earth had crossed the galaxy to save them. Outside the bunker, the sounds of battle were getting quieter. The Vorthik were retreating or dying. For the first time in months, Jake Morrison allowed himself to hope that the children in the bunker had stopped crying. The adults were smiling. Someone had heard their call for help. Someone had come. Earth had not forgotten them after all. Jake Morrison stepped out of the bunker and could not believe what he saw. The colony that had been burning and dying just hours before was now full of soldiers who moved like they owned the place. But these were not Vorthik soldiers. These were humans. The soldiers wore armor that looked like it came from the future. Blue energy fields glowed around them. Their weapons hummed with power, and they moved with a confidence that Jake had never seen before. Mr. Morrison, a tall man in armor, walked up to him. The faceplate of his helmet was clear, showing a young man with serious eyes. I'm Lieutenant Commander Alex Stone. Are you hurt? No, I'm fine, Jake said. But how are you here? How did you get here so fast? Alex smiled. We've been traveling. For 3 months, sir. As soon as Earth got word about the Vorthik attacks, we started moving. We came as fast as we could. 3 months? Jake said. But that's impossible. It takes 6 months to travel from Earth to here. Not anymore, Alex said. We have new engines, new ships. A lot of things have changed back home. Jake looked around at the soldiers. They were everywhere, but they were not just standing around. Some were helping wounded colonists. Others were fixing damaged buildings. Still others were setting up defensive positions in case more Vorthik came. Major Dan Phillips was coordinating everything from his mobile command post. His computer showed him the location of every soldier and every colonist. He could see the whole battle area at once and give orders instantly. Alpha Squad, check Building 12 for survivors, Dan said into his radio. Copy that, sir. We're moving now. Bravo Squad, The medical team needs help moving the wounded. On our way. Jake had never seen military coordination like this. Every soldier knew exactly what to do and when to do it. They worked together like parts of one big machine. Captain Ryan Murphy was leading a team deep into the area where the area Vorthik had been strongest. There were still colonists trapped in buildings. There, Ryan's job was to get them out alive. Julie, take the left side, Ryan said to Sergeant Julie Adams. She was carrying a bag full of explosives. Sam, you're with me on the right. Private Sam Wright nodded. He was carrying extra medical supplies in case they found wounded people. Moved through the streets carefully. The Vorthik might have pulled back, but there could still be snipers hiding in the buildings. Ryan's helmet display showed him heat signatures and movement patterns. So far, everything looked clear. Contact, Julie said quietly. 3 civilians in the basement of Building 15. They're alive but scared. Go get them, Ryan said. Sam, and I will cover you. Julie ran to the building and disappeared inside. A minute later, she came out with an old man, a woman, and a teenager. All 3 were crying with relief. Thank you, the old man said. We thought we were going to die. Not today, Julie said with a smile. Today you get to live. Back at the command post, Major Dan Phillips was getting reports from all his teams. The battle was almost over. Most of the Vorthik were dead or had run away. The few that were left were hiding and trying to escape. Sir, came a voice over the radio. This is Specialist Chloe Johnson. I have eyes on 3 Vorthik flyers trying to reach their ships at the spaceport. Take them down, Dan ordered. Chloe Johnson was on a rooftop with a shoulder-fired missile launcher. She could see the Vorthik aircraft flying low between the buildings. They were trying to stay hidden, but her targeting system could track them easily. She pulled the trigger 3 times. 3 missiles flew through the air, chasing the enemy aircraft. Within seconds, all 3 Vorthik flyers exploded and crashed to the ground. Targets destroyed, Chloe reported. Good work, Dan said. That was the last of their air support. The Vorthik commander, General Vyses, watched the battle from his ship in orbit. He could not understand what was happening. His forces had been winning. The colonists were helpless. Victory had been certain. Then these new human soldiers had appeared from nowhere. They fought with weapons and tactics he had never seen before. In just a few hours, they had turned a sure victory into a crushing defeat. General, one of his officers said, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's from the humans. Put it through, Vyses said. A human voice came over the radio. It was calm and professional. This is Major Dan Phillips of the Terran Defense Force. You have 1 hour to evacuate all your forces from this system. If you're still here after that, we will destroy your ships. Vyses was shocked. You dare threaten me? I command the greatest fleet in this sector. General, Dan replied, look at your tactical display. Count how many of your soldiers are still alive on the surface. Then ask yourself if you really want to find out what our ships can do. Vyses looked at his screens. Of the 3,000 soldiers he had sent to the surface, fewer than 200 were still alive. The rest had been killed in just a few hours by a force of only 200 human soldiers. These were not the weak colonists his empire usually fought. These were professional warriors with technology that was clearly superior to his own. On the surface, Dr. Paul Carter was working with a human medic named Steve Parker. They were treating wounded colonists in the medical center that the Earth soldiers had set up. I've never seen medical equipment like this, Paul said as he watched Steve. Use a device that could heal cuts instantly. This is standard field gear, Steve said. We carry it on every mission. Paul shook his head. The technology was incredible. But what amazed him more was how the Earth soldiers treated everyone. They helped wounded Vorthik prisoners as well as human colonists. "Why are you helping them?" Paul asked, pointing to a wounded Vorthik soldier. "Because he's hurt," Steve said simply. "We don't leave wounded behind, even if they're enemies." This was something Paul had never seen before. The Vorthik left their own wounded to die. But these human soldiers risked their lives to save everyone, even their enemies. Private Luke Nelson was guarding a group of colonial children who had been found hiding in a school. The children were scared, but Luke was telling them stories to help them calm down. "Are you going to stay and protect us?" A little girl asked. "For as long as you need us," Luke said. "That's why we're here." The little girl smiled for the first time in months. "My daddy said no one would come to help." U.S. "Well, your daddy was wrong," Luke said. "Earth never forgets its children." Sergeant Kate Morgan was coordinating the cleanup operation. Her teams were checking every building for survivors and making sure the area was safe. They found more colonists alive than anyone had expected. "How many survivors total?" Jake Morrison asked her. 843, Kate replied. "We lost some, but we saved most of them." Jake felt tears in his eyes again. When the attack started, he had thought everyone would die. Now most of his people were alive and safe. As the sun began to rise over New Kepler, the Earth soldiers continued their work. They treated the wounded, fixed the damaged buildings, and set up defenses in case more enemies came. The colonists watched in amazement. These soldiers from Earth had traveled across the galaxy to save them. They had fought with incredible skill and courage. And now they were helping rebuild what had been destroyed. For the first time in months, the people of New Kepler had hope again. The battle for New Kepler was almost over, but the Earth soldiers were not done yet. They moved through the colony with a purpose that amazed everyone who watched them. This was not just about winning a fight. This was about something bigger. Lieutenant Grace Foster was leading her squad toward the last group of Vorthik soldiers. They had barricaded themselves in the colony's main warehouse and were refusing to surrender. Grace could have just blown up the building, but there were supplies inside that the colonists needed. "Tyler, can you get us in without destroying everything?" Grace asked. Sergeant Tyler Brooks nodded. He was a specialist in getting into places quietly. "Give me 10 minutes, he said. Tyler moved like a shadow around the warehouse. The Vorthik inside did not even know he was there. He found a small window on the side of the building and slipped inside without making a sound. The Vorthik soldiers were watching the main doors, waiting for the humans to attack. They never saw Tyler coming up behind them. One by one, he knocked them out with a weapon that put them to sleep instead of killing them. "Warehouse secure," Tyler reported. "All enemies neutralized. No casualties on either side." Grace smiled. Tyler had done exactly what she knew he would do. He had solved the problem without killing anyone unnecessarily, and without damaging the supplies the colonists needed. This was how Earth soldiers fought. They did not just try to kill as many enemies as possible. They thought about every action and its consequences. They tried to find solutions that saved lives and protected innocent people. Corporal Hannah Price was in the medical center, working with the wounded. What surprised her was that some of the patients were Vorthik soldiers who had been captured during the fighting. "Why are we treating them?" asked Maria Rodriguez, the colonial medic who was helping her. "Because they're hurt," Hannah said. "We don't let people suffer if we can help them, no matter who they are." One of the wounded Vorthik soldiers looked up at Hannah with confusion in his eyes. In his language, he asked, "Why do you help me? I am your enemy." Hannah did not speak his language, but she understood what he was asking. Through a translator device, she answered, "Because everyone deserves to live, even enemies." The Vorthik soldier stared at her. In his entire life, he had never heard of warriors who helped their enemies. His own people would have left him to die if he had been wounded. But these humans were risking their own supplies and time to save him. Dr. Paul Carter watched this exchange with amazement. "I've studied alien cultures for 20 years, he told Hannah. "I've never seen anything like this. You're changing how they think about war." The Earth soldiers were not just better fighters than the Vorthik. They fought with completely different rules. They protected civilians. They helped wounded enemies. They tried to solve problems without unnecessary violence. This was confusing to the Vorthik survivors. General Vyses, still in his ship above the planet, was getting reports from his remaining soldiers that made no sense to him. "General," one of his officers said, "the humans are offering medical treatment to our wounded. They say they will release our prisoners when the fighting is over." "That's impossible," Vyses said. "No one does that. It must be a trick." But it was not a trick. It was just how humans fought. Private Luke Nelson was still with the group of colonial children. One of the children, a boy named Danny, asked him, "Are you going to kill all the bad aliens?" Luke thought about his answer carefully. "We're going to stop them from hurting people," he said. "But we don't kill unless we have to." "My dad says the only good alien is a dead alien," Danny said. Luke knelt down to look at the boy. "Your dad is scared and angry, and that's okay. But not all aliens are bad. Some are good people, just like some humans are good, and some are bad." This was another thing that made the Earth soldiers different. They did not hate all aliens just because some aliens were their enemies. They judged each person by their actions, not by what species they belonged to. Sergeant Kate Morgan was coordinating the final cleanup operations when she got a call on her radio. "Kate, this is Major Phillips. We have a situation at the North Gate. A group of Vorthik civilians are asking for help." Kate was surprised. "Civilians? I thought the Vorthik were all soldiers." "No, they have families too. Apparently, some of their soldiers brought their wives and children with them. They're scared and hungry, and they're asking us for food and protection." Kate did not hesitate. "I'm on my way." When she got to the North Gate, she found a group of Vorthik civilians huddled together. They looked terrified. Their children were crying, and the adults were trying to protect them. Through a translator, one of the Vorthik women said, "Please do not kill us. We are not soldiers. We are just families." Kate looked at the frightened aliens. They were so different from humans, but she could see the same fear in their eyes that she had seen in the human children earlier. "No one is going to hurt you," Kate said. "We'll get you food and a safe place to stay." The Vorthik woman started crying. "But we are your enemies. Our soldiers killed your people." "You didn't kill anyone," Kate said. "You're just families trying to survive. We don't punish children for what their parents do." This was the moment when everything changed for the Vorthik. They realized that these human warriors were unlike any enemy they had ever fought. The humans made a distinction between soldiers and civilians, between guilty and innocent. Colonel Jim Hayes, the commander of the entire Earth expedition, arrived at New Kepler just as the fighting was ending. He surveyed the battlefield and was pleased with what he saw. His soldiers had not just won a military victory. They had demonstrated something much more important. They had shown that humans fought differently than other species. They fought with honor and mercy. "Major Phillips," Jim said. "Status report." "Sir, the colony is secure. We have 843 colonial survivors, minimal casualties on our side, and about 200 Vorthik prisoners. We're providing medical care to all wounded, including enemy combatants." "Good work," Jim said. "What about the Vorthik fleet?" "General Vyses is still in orbit, but he's not attacking. I think he's trying to figure out what to do next." Jim nodded. "Open a channel to his ship." When the communication link was established, Jim spoke directly to the Vorthic commander. General Vyses, this is Colonel Jim Hayes. I want to discuss. Terms? Terms? Vyses said. You want us to surrender? I want you to leave this system and never come back, Jim said. In return, we'll give you back your prisoners and provide medical supplies for your wounded. Vyses was shocked. You would do that? Even after we attacked your people? General, we didn't come here to conquer your empire. We came here to protect our colonists. If you leave them alone, we have no fight with you. This was something Vyses had never experienced. In his culture, enemies fought until one side was completely destroyed. The idea of showing mercy to a defeated enemy was foreign to him. What guarantee do I have that you won't attack us when we leave? Vyses asked. You have my word, Jim replied, and the word of Earth. For the first time in his life, General Vyses was dealing with an enemy who fought with honor. These humans could have destroyed his fleet, but instead they were offering him a way to save face and save lives. On the surface of New Kepler, the colonists were beginning to understand what had happened. Earth had not just sent soldiers to rescue them. Earth had sent a message to the entire galaxy. Jake Morrison stood with Colonel Hayes as they watched the repair work beginning. How many people did Earth send? Jake asked. This is just one battle group, Jim replied. We have others spread across human space. Wherever our people are threatened, we'll be there. But why? Jake asked. Why spend so much to protect small colonies like this one? Jim looked at Jake seriously. Because every human life matters. Because we don't abandon our own. And because someone has to show the galaxy that there's a better way to fight wars. As the Earth ships prepared to leave New Kepler, the colonists gathered to watch them go. These warriors had saved their lives and their homes. But more than that, they had given them something to believe in again. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of empires that conquered and enslaved. But now there was something new. Now there was Earth, and Earth's warriors fought not just to win, but to protect the innocent and show mercy to the defeated. Hope had returned to human space. The morning sun shone on New Kepler colony, and for the first time in months, it was a beautiful sight. The buildings were still damaged, but people were working to fix them. Children were playing in the streets again. The fear was gone. Colonel Jim Hayes stood on the hill, overlooking the colony with Jake Morrison. They watched as Earth soldiers worked alongside colonists to rebuild what the Vorthic had destroyed. Your people work hard, Jim said. They're good people, Jake replied. They came here to build something new. They didn't expect to fight a war. That's why we came, Jim said. Good people shouldn't have to fight wars alone. Down in the colony, the work was going faster than anyone had expected. The Earth soldiers had brought equipment that could fix buildings in hours instead of days. They had medical supplies that could heal injuries that would have taken weeks to recover from. Lisa Harper was working with Earth engineers to rebuild the power plant. The technology they brought was 50 years ahead of anything the colonists had seen. This reactor design is incredible, Lisa said as she watched the engineers work. It's 3 times more efficient than our old one, and completely safe. Standard Earth technology now, one of the engineers replied. We learned a lot in the last few decades. Had to, with all the expansion into hostile space. Lisa realized that Earth had changed a lot since the colonists had left. The home world had not been sitting still while humans spread across the galaxy. They had been preparing for exactly this kind of situation. Dr. Paul Carter was in the medical center, learning about the new medicines the Earth soldiers had brought. They had treatments for diseases that the colonists thought were incurable. This medicine can fix genetic damage, Paul said in amazement as he read the technical specifications. We developed it after the war with the Centauri Republic, explained Dr. Steve Parker, the Earth medic. They used biological weapons against our colonies. We had to find ways to fix what they did to our people. Paul looked up in surprise. War with the Centauri? But they were our allies when I left Earth. Things change, Steve said sadly. When humans started expanding, some of our old allies decided they didn't want competition. Earth learned the hard way that we needed to be able to defend ourselves. This explained a lot. Earth had not just sent soldiers to New Kepler out of kindness. They had sent them because Earth had learned that humans had enemies in space, and those enemies would not hesitate to attack innocent colonists. General Vyses was still in his ship above the planet, but he was not planning another attack. He was trying to understand what had happened. His officers were giving him reports that made no sense. General, one of his officers said, the humans have released all our prisoners. They gave them medical treatment and food before letting them go. What? Vyses said. All of them? Yes, sir. Even the ones who were badly wounded. They fixed them up and sent them back to us. Vyses stared at the report. In his entire military career, he had never heard of anything like this. Enemies did not heal each other's wounded and then release them. It was unthinkable. There's more, sir, the officer continued. They sent medical supplies with the prisoners. Enough to treat our wounded for weeks. Why would they do that? I don't know, sir. The human commander said it was the right thing to do. Vyses was beginning to understand that these humans were different from any species he had ever fought. They had rules about how wars should be fought, and those rules included showing mercy to defeated enemies. On the surface, the Vorthik civilian families were being cared for in a camp the Earth soldiers had set up. The camp was not a prison. It was more like a refugee center, with food and medical care and safe places for the children to play. Sergeant Kate Morgan was in charge of the camp. She watched as human soldiers played games with Vorthik children. The language barrier made it difficult, but children always found ways to communicate. This is wrong, said one of the Vorthik adults through a translator. We are your enemies. You should not be kind to us. You're not our enemies, Kate replied. Your soldiers were our enemies. You're just families caught in the middle of a war you didn't start. The Vorthik woman looked confused. But in war, all members of the enemy species are targets. That is how war works. Not for us, Kate said. We fight soldiers. We protect everyone else. This conversation was being repeated all over the camp. The Vorthik civilians were learning that humans had different ideas about war and peace. They were learning that humans made distinctions between combatants and non-combatants. Lieutenant Commander Alex Stone was preparing his squad for departure. They had completed their mission, but other colonies needed their help. The war against species like the Vorthik was far from over. Sir, one of his soldiers asked, why don't we just destroy their whole fleet while we have the chance? It would stop them from attacking other colonies. Alex thought about the question carefully. Because that's not who we are, he said finally. We came here to save lives, not to start a genocide. If we destroy them all, how are we different from them? This was the difference between Earth's military and every other military in the galaxy. Earth soldiers were taught to think about the consequences of their actions. They were taught that how you win a war is just as important as winning it. Colonel Jim Hayes received a message from Earth. More, Vorthik fleets were attacking human colonies and other systems. His battle group was needed elsewhere. How long before? We can leave? Jim asked Major Dan Phillips. The colony defenses are set up, Dan replied. The colonists can hold off small attacks now. But if the Vorthik come back in force, They won't, Jim said confidently. Word is going to spread about what happened here. Other species are going to learn that attacking human colonies comes with a price. Jim was right. Across the galaxy, The story of New Kepler was already being told. Human warriors had traveled impossible distances to save a small colony. They had defeated a superior force and then shown mercy to their enemies. Some species were impressed, others were frightened. All of them were taking notice. Jake Morrison stood with his daughter Emma Collins, who had arrived on one of the Earth ships. She was a journalist who wanted to tell the story of what had happened at New Kepler. "Dad, what was it like when they arrived?" Emma asked. Jake thought back to that terrible night when all hope seemed lost. "It was like watching angels fall from heaven," he said. "One minute we were waiting to die. The next minute, warriors from Earth were fighting to save us." "Why do you think they came?" "Because they could," Jake said. "Because they had the power to help, so they did. That's what makes humans special." Emma was writing down everything he said. This story would be told across human space. It would. Remind everyone that Earth had not forgotten its children among the stars. As the Earth ships prepared to leave, the colonists gathered to say goodbye. These soldiers had saved their lives and their homes. More importantly, they had saved their hope. Colonel Hayes spoke to the crowd that had gathered. "You are not alone," he said. "Earth watches over all its children. If you are threatened again, we will come again." A small girl pushed through the crowd and ran up to Colonel Hayes. It was the same girl who had asked Private Luke Nelson if the soldiers would stay and protect them. "Will you really come back if the bad aliens return?" she asked. Colonel Hayes knelt down to her level. "Yes," he said. "We will always come back. That's a promise." The little girl smiled and hugged him. In that moment, everyone watching understood what this was really about. It was not just about military strategy or defending territory. It was about family. It was about the idea that no human should face danger alone. As the Earth ships lifted off into space, their destination was already set. Another colony was under attack. Another group of humans needed saving. The warriors would fall from the sky again, bringing hope to those who had given up. The Vorthic fleet departed the system, but they took with them more than just their surviving soldiers. They took a new understanding of what humans were capable of. They had learned that humans fought not just with superior weapons, but with superior principles. General Vyses sent a message to Vorthic High Command. "Recommend avoiding human colonies in the future. These are not the soft targets we expected. These humans fight like demons, but they fight with honor. They are dangerous enemies and would make valuable allies." The message would change how the Vorthic Empire viewed humanity. Other species would receive similar reports from their own commanders. Slowly, the galaxy was learning that humans were different. On New Kepler, life returned to normal. But it was a new kind of normal. The colonists knew they were not alone anymore. Somewhere in space, Earth's warriors were watching and waiting. If danger came again, help would fall from the sky. Children played in the rebuilt streets. Farmers worked in the fields. Engineers built new and better facilities. But everyone remembered the night when hope had seemed lost, and angels in armor had descended from heaven to save them. The galaxy was a dangerous place, full of empires that conquered and enslaved. But now there was something new in that galaxy. Now there was humanity, and humanity fought for something greater than conquest. They fought for the idea that every life had value. They fought for the belief that the strong should protect the weak. They fought for hope itself, and when that hope was threatened, Earth